Whatever you do, do not cut your hair, do not wear black, don't get married, or give birth on this day. Now, some are so fearful of this day that they might not even leave their house at all. Today, we're diving into the mysterious origins of one of the most enduring superstitions of all time, Friday the 13th. And on top of it being Friday the 13th this upcoming week, if you are watching this when I'm posting it the same week, it's also October Friday the 13th, which makes it even spookier. And on top of Friday the 13th in October, it is also coincidentally my birthday this Friday. Yes, I was born on October 13th. Did you expect anything else from me? Okay. With that being said, let's dive into this video on what the hell is Friday the 13th? Why is it a day that people dread so much? Now, Friday has long been considered an unlucky day, dating back to the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. Now, tradition holds that there were 13 individuals present at the Last Supper, with the 13th guest being, yes, you guessed it, Judas, the apostle who betrayed Jesus. Amen. Jesus was also thought to be crucified on a Friday, so what is even unluckier than a regular Good Friday that's Friday the 13th? But don't worry, Christians, this doesn't happen too much, and the next one isn't until 2063, so the world isn't going to end for at least another 40 years. But over centuries, the belief of the unluckiness of Friday the 13th became a part of other cultures as well as other civilizations. For example, in Norse mythology, there's a story about a banquet in Valhalla during which 12 gods were invited. Can you guess who the 13th one was? Loki, the trickster god, was not invited, but he did crash the party, making him the 13th guest. Chaos obviously ensued, leading to a great battle and ultimately the downfall of several gods, making the number 13 unlucky for Norse mythology. And some have the theory that the fear of Friday the 13th can be linked to the Knights Templar, a powerful medieval Christian military order. Because on Friday, October 13th of 1307, King Philip of France ordered the arrest and execution of thousands of Templar knights, accusing them of heresy. In France, Friday the 13th might have been associated with misfortune as early as the first half of the 19th century. And we can see this because a character in the 1834 play called Le Fenice de Gribouille states, "I was born on a Friday, December 13th, 1813, from which come all of my misfortunes." And we can also see an early documented, unlucky number 13 reference in English in H.S. Edwards' biography of Gioacchino Rossini, who died on Friday the 13th of November in 1868. He stated, "Rossini was surrounded to the last by admiring friends, and if be true that, like so many Italians, he regarded Fridays as an unlucky day and 13 as an unlucky number. It is remarkable that on Friday, the 13th of November, he passed away." So we can see during other times and other places, people believed in the superstition of Friday the 13th. And people also point out that the popularity of Friday the 13th, the superstition, was a result of the 1907 T.W. Lawson's novel called Friday the 13th. In this novel, an unscrupulous broker takes advantage of the superstition to create a Wall Street panic on a Friday the 13th. Now, that is a strategy. I'm not suggesting it because I cannot give financial advice. I don't have my Series 7 or whatever it is to, give financial advice. But honestly, let's short them stocks this week, baby. Actually, maybe allegedly. I don't know. That's a joke. I feel like I have to point that out in case one day someone's like, "I spent 50 grand on the BlackBerry stock and it's your fucking fault, bitch." And like a lot of paranormal phenomenons, for example, like the Killer Clowns, we made a Killer Clowns podcast recently, Hollywood actually played a huge part in making killer clowns be portrayed as evil and well, not killer clowns, clowns in general as evil and scary and weird and creepy. And it kind of reinforced this idea in people. And same with Friday the 13th, because Hollywood played a significant role in this as well, with the release of the horror film Friday the 13th in 1980, creating an iconic slasher franchise centered around this ominous day. And according to Nathaniel Laschenmeyer in his book 13, The World's Most Popular Superstition, the Friday the 13th superstition is relatively recent. It didn't exist until the early 20th century. Yet now it is the most popular superstition in the world, replacing another 13-related superstition that if 13 people sat at a table together, one would die within the year. So now that we discussed some of the theories of when and where the superstition of Friday the 13th came from and, kind of took over, I guess, let's go through some data, let's go through some studies to see, does this really mean anything, Friday the 13th? Should people really not leave their house? Is it really unlucky according to the science, the data? So, the truth behind it. A study in the UK by Scanlon, Lubin, Scanlon, and Singleton. Wow. Scanlon Lubin said, love that. In 1993, attracted attention from popular science literature as it concluded that, quote, the risk of hospital admission as a result of transportation accident may be increased by as much as 52% on the 13th. However, the authors clearly state that, quote, the number of admissions from accidents are too small to allow meaningful analysis. And subsequent studies have disproved any correlation between Friday the 13th and the rate of accidents. In June of 2008, the Dutch Center for Insurance Statistics stated to the contrary, that fewer accidents and reports of fire and theft occur when the 13th of the month falls on a Friday than on any other Fridays, because people are preventively more careful or they just stay home in general. Statistically speaking, driving is slightly safer on Friday the 13th, at least in the Netherlands, according to the study. In the last 2 years, Dutch insurers received reports of an average 7,800 traffic accidents each Friday, but the average figure when the 13th fell on a Friday was just 7,500. So, thankfully, for those who fear Friday the 13th, who don't want to leave their house, don't want to get their hair cut, give birth, get married, whatever, Friday the 13th never occur more than 3 times a year and usually only occurs twice. Some years only have one Friday the 13th, so it's not a lot, okay? It might be more than your birthday, but it's like less than 3. You know what I mean? And a 2011 German study published in the World Journey of Surgery explored whether there is a link between Friday the 13th and an increase of blood loss and the frequency of emergency room visits on those days. Researchers reviewed 3,281 days at a hospital facility that included 15 Friday the 13ths. They found no correlation. They noted, our data indicates that such beliefs are myths far beyond reality. So now that we looked into the statistics of whether or not this is true or not, although the data, it gets a little blurry, some studies show that it is unlucky, some studies show that it's not unlucky, it's just like any other day. What is the social impact of Friday the 13th? According to the Stress Management Center and Phobia Institute in Asheville, North Carolina, an estimated 17 to 21 million people in the United States are affected by a fear of this day, making it the most feared date. Some people are so paralyzed by this fear that they avoid their normal routines in doing business, taking flights, or even just getting out of bed. There's even a name for this fear. Actually, there are like 3 names that I found for this fear, and I can't pronounce any of them, but I'll try. Paraskevidecatriophobia. Many people have aracavistecatriophobia, also known as frigatricaidcaphobia, or fear of the Friday the 13th. Now, it's been estimated that $800 to $900 million is lost in business in the United States on this day. Despite this, representatives for both Delta Airlines and Continental Airlines, the latter now merged into United Airlines, shout out to United, have stated that their airlines do not suffer from any noticeable drop in travel on those Fridays. But do they say that just to be like, you gotta fly, In Finland, a consortium of governmental and non-governmental organizations led by the Ministry of Social Affairs and Health promotes the National Accident Day to raise awareness about automotive safety, which happens to always fall on Friday the 13th. That's interesting because it kind of makes people think, oh shit, they're scared already, so maybe they'll absorb the information more. Whereas if it's just on any other day, it's just oh, national accident, yeah, they happen, And this event specifically is coordinated by the Finnish Red Cross. Smart of you guys, you Finnish Red Crossers, and has been held since 1995. In the late 19th century, an elite American group known as the 13 Club, who met routinely on the 13th of the month, sitting 13 at a table, in order to face down the specter of the number 13, tried to counter the fears of Fridays and 13. And during this time, Fridays were routinely used as the day of the week that executions took place in the United States. The 13 Club asked judges to execute criminals on other days of the week besides Friday, and those who did so became honored guests at their little dinners. In 1892, the New York Times reported that owing principally to the efforts of the 13 Club, the execution day has been changed or varied in all states of the Union and thus has, to a great extent, brightened the day. I love it. I love it. You might know this already, but many buildings skip the floor number 13, especially hotels. And airlines sometimes even avoid using flight number 13. And some people think that seeing a black cat is, bad luck in general. But seeing a black cat on Friday the 13th, bad luck, misfortune, something bad's gonna happen to you. And in French Lick, Indiana, in the years 1939 and 1942, the town board actually decreed that all black cats must wear bells on Friday the 13th so that residents could avoid them. And according to National Geographic, more than 80% of high-rise buildings avoid having a 13th floor. Now, what are some other unlucky dates in other countries? Because I know in the United States, Friday the 13th is notoriously bad, and we see in some other countries as well. Tuesday the 13th in Hispanic and Greek culture is also seen as a sign of bad luck. In Spanish-speaking countries, instead of Friday, they believe Tuesday the 13th is considered a day of bad luck. The Greeks also consider Tuesday, and especially the 13th, as an unlucky day. Tuesday is considered dominated by the influence of Ares, the god of war, or Mars, the Roman equivalent. The fall of Constantinople to the Fourth Crusade occurred on Tuesday, the 13th of April, 1204, and the fall of Constantinople to the Ottomans happened on Tuesday, the 29th of May, 1453. These are events that strengthen the superstition that Tuesdays are an unlucky day. Some people, like myself, consider the number 13 lucky. Most of them, I'm assuming, were either born on the day or like superstitious, supernatural stuff and just appreciate the number 13. We see like tattoo parlors on Friday the 13th. It's like half off or something. And so there's always like a 13 tattoo. Maybe I should get one. Iconic. In addition to me, Taylor Swift was also born on the 13th, and she's like, one of the notorious celebrities for appreciating the number 13. She stated, "I was born on the 13th. I turned 13 on Friday the 13th. My first album went gold in 13 weeks. My first number one song had a 13-second intro. Every time I've won an award, I've been seated in either the 13th seat, the 13th row, the 13th section, or row M, which is the 13th letter. Basically, whenever a 13 comes up in my life, it's a good thing." Not just Taylor Swift feels this way, because a lot of pagans believe that the number 13 is lucky. For pagans, it represents the number of full moons in a year, and they consider it a sign of luck. So with that being said, please comment down below your feelings of Friday the 13th. If you're scared to do things, if you're a little bit more cautious, if you're a little bit more anxious, or if you like the number 13, just comment down below what you feel, or just, anything that you want to see in the future from us. But as always, make sure to subscribe to this channel, like, comment anything you want below, and we'll see you guys next time here on College and Convos, baby. Bye. Happy Friday the 13th. Happy birthday to me. Woo!